So let's talk about two words that feel like they live on opposite ends of the universe: creativity and strategy. We're usually told we have to pick one. You're either the free-spirited artist or the disciplined planner. But what if that's just a false choice? In this explainer, we're going to break down a really powerful model called strategic creativity. Think of it as a framework for using a vision of the future to make real, tangible changes right here and right now.
I mean, you know the drill. On one side, you've got creativity. We think of freedom, maybe a little bit of chaos, right? It's all about art and making something totally new. And then there's strategy. That word just feels so buttoned up. It's about planning, control, having a clear path forward, usually in a business context. They feel like total opposites. One is about breaking the rules, the other's about making them.
But what if that whole setup is just wrong? What if instead of being enemies, they're actually two sides of the same coin, essential partners in making a real impact?
Okay, so if they're not enemies, how do we get them to work together? Well, the secret lies in this idea of actively shaping your future, starting this very moment. It's about learning how to be both the visionary artist and the master planner all at the same time. And this brings us to the big idea: strategic creativity. Now, here's the core definition, and it's a powerful one. It's a practice of shaping the future in order to convincingly change the present. Think about that for a second. You stop waiting for the future to happen to you, and you start designing a future so compelling that it forces you to act differently today. Now, this is where it gets really cool. Let's talk about time. In the next, say, 0 to 3 years, that's your operational zone. Most of that's pretty much already baked in. Now look way out, 12, 15 plus years, that's speculative territory. It's almost science fiction. But see that middle part, that 5 to 10-year window? That is the strategic sweet spot. It's far enough away that you can imagine some really big changes, but it's close enough that what you do today actually matters. That's where the magic happens. And to get started in that sweet spot, the entire framework really just boils down to two deceptively simple questions. The first one sounds easy. What's going on? But this isn't just a casual, how are you? No, this is about doing a deep, critical dive into the present. It's about looking at the status quo from all these different angles and realizing, you know what? There's never just one simple story about what's happening right now. And the second question, well, this is the real engine of creation. What if? This is where you let your imagination run wild, but in a structured way. What if we just threw out the old rules? What if we did the exact opposite of what everyone expects? This isn't just daydreaming. It's how you generate real, tangible, new possibilities to move forward. Okay, so we have our two big questions: what's going on and what if? Now let's get into the nitty-gritty. How does this whole thing actually work in practice? How do you turn those questions into real action? It really comes down to these three core components, and they all have to work together. You've got acting creatively, designing strategically, and finally creating value. Let's break each of those down. All right, first up, acting creatively. And right off the bat, let's just kill this myth that creativity is some kind of magical gift that you're either born with or you're not. In this model, creativity is all about tangible, learnable practices. It's about what you actually do. And look at the range of these practices. I mean, sure, we've got the usual suspects like sketching and prototyping, but think about hacking a system, or improvising on the spot like a jazz musician, or one of my favorites, fermenting. Just letting an idea sit and bubble and transform over time. These are all real skills you can learn and get better at. Okay, so you've got all this amazing creative energy bubbling up. Now what? Well, that's where part 2, designing strategically, comes in. And listen, the point of strategy isn't to kill that creativity. It's to give it a direction. It's about channeling all that beautiful chaos toward a specific goal. And strategy does 3 really critical things. First, it makes you set up a judgment regime, which is just a fancy way of saying you decide what success actually looks like for you. Second, it forces you to focus by making you decide what you're not going to do. And trust me, saying no is one of the most powerful strategic moves there is. And finally, it helps you line up your resources, your time, your attention, your money. And last but not least, all this work, it has to lead to something. The third piece, creating value, isn't just about the final product for your audience. It actually has a dual purpose, and this is absolutely key to making the whole thing sustainable. And here they are. On one side, your work has to create value in itself. That means it's for you, the creator.
The process has to be meaningful, it has to feed you personally. But, and this is a big but, it also has to create value for others. It needs to land with an audience, a client, the world. It needs to have an impact. Real strategic creativity happens right in that sweet spot where those two overlap.
So, okay, this all sounds great in theory, right? But how do you actually get better at it? How do you build your own personal creative practice?
You know, I think this quote from Samuel Beckett just nails the mindset you need. Ever tried, ever failed, no matter. Try again, fail better. It's not about being perfect or avoiding failure. It's about iteration. It's about having the resilience to keep trying, to learn from every single attempt, and to constantly refine your approach. That's the soul of a real creative practice.
And to make that practice really effective, you've got to be pushing in 3 directions at once. First, repetition. That's about aiming deep, really mastering your core skills. Then there's renewal, aiming forward. You have to constantly look for new ways of doing things, challenging your own habits. And finally, transcendence. This is about aiming upward, pushing past your limits to create something that's on a whole new level.
We've walked through the whole framework, right? But the real power comes when you actually start to apply it. So now, it's your turn. It all comes back to that one powerful question.
When you boil it all down, strategic creativity is a model for action. It's a way to stop thinking of the visionary and the practical as two separate, opposing things. It unites them. It's how you take those big, ambitious ideas and actually make them happen in the real world.
And that leaves us with this final question. The point isn't to predict the future. The point is to create it. So I'll ask you, what future will you start shaping today to create the present you actually want to live in?